Hello, and welcome to Breakfast at Mom's. I'm Mom, aka Sandra, and these are my daughters, Candace and Alyssa, and these are my daughter-in-laws, Brooks and Felisha. And we are so glad that you came to join our online community of women where we meet every week to talk about all things women, all things that we go through, topics that we are challenged with. So this week, Brooks is going to spill the tea as we talk about
how to support our husbands with demanding careers.
Yes, I love it.
So I've mentioned before that my husband, Brandon, is a firefighter. So he's been in the fire world for about 7 years. And then he was in full-time. And then he was EMS prior to that. So we've kind of lived this fire service life, which with that comes, the demands of time away from the house. It comes the demands of the emotional toll that it takes on him. Because, there's things that they see that we never, ever experience, but he also teaches. So now, working the 24/48s, on those other days, now he's teaching other students. So there is a lot going on in our house. And he is moving up the ladder, which I'm so proud of. But it's oftentimes that I wonder, am I doing what I need to do to support him in that? I'm running this way.
The answer is yes.
Yes. I try. But that's why I really wanted to bring up this topic, because I was like, sometimes you really just sit down and think, how am I playing a role in that specific part of his life? We talk about dad. Dad, I think, was where the boys and have kind of learned this go get 'em attitude from. Is he's an entrepreneur because he loves it and he works a lot. And but it's a demanding career because there's a lot of pressure put on him. Right.
When you own your own business, it's really 24/7. Honestly, it really is.
And then with Dale taking over, he's got the burden of learning all of the things that dad knows, but also the pressure's kind of from all of us, not that we want to do that, but he's kind of keep the legacy alive. So you got to think that takes an emotional, thing on his shoulder.
Right.
Colby's starting his own business. So he's working full time and he's trying to cultivate something that you guys are doing after hours, in the night, on the weekends.
Right.
Yes. And then Trevor, I can't imagine what your house, the amount that he has to go through to not only provide for you guys in that time, but to support the church and the family, that the larger family in that. So my first question, because I had experienced this and had to really think about this, is, do y'all ever just feel lonely sometimes? Do y'all ever just go
Are we being honest?
Yeah.
Well, I hope we are.
Yeah, I think as when I was not part of the building of a company, I definitely felt that. And when the kids were younger, I felt that extreme burden of, I'm the one that's doing all of this stuff. But when you really try to put yourself in their shoes as best as you can, the burden that they feel, how as women, we feel proud about our home, the way our home looks. For men, they're proud about their work and what they do. That is a child to them. That is a baby to them. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is an adjustment, and you can feel lonely if you don't figure out weekly date night or
how to be a part of it.
How to be a part of it, or we're going to talk about this for a little bit, and then we're not going to talk about work anymore. I can remember early on in the marriage, Dad and I going to dinner finally because we could get someone to babysit, and all Dad would talk about is work, but all I would talk about was kids.
True.
So and then you were like, okay,
what happened to you?
We need to learn to have conversations. There's nothing wrong. We have to talk about those things, but we have to know that, okay, we've talked about that. Now we're on a date. Let's talk about us. Let's talk about aspirations that we have for the future.
Very
or
true.
Something like that.
I think for me, someone who is a stay-at-home mom, although I do work from home and I have a job, but being the one that is home and my husband is not home, for sure there's feelings of loneliness. But if you're in that boat, even if you don't have a job that you're doing from home and you're like, I am a stay-at-home mom. Let me just tell you, like, just because you don't make a paycheck does not make your role or work any less significant.
Absolutely.
So I think there is those levels of, I do feel lonely and I wish I had another adult in my presence to talk to. But at the same time, like owning, hey, my work is significant. What I do, I'm raising our children. The work I'm doing in our home, that is just as significant as dad going and building a business or making the paycheck.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
I think for our family, Trevor's phone is constantly texts, phone calls, whether it's, someone at the church passed away, someone at the church needs something, they need to talk right now, they need a counseling session, like whatever that is. So it can be lonely because you're like, oh, we just sat down to actually have time together and now you're on the phone. And so for me, I have to remember him and I were called to do this. And so there is a grace for that. And I don't, as much as like I would like to get mad at him at those moments, like I have to remember like he's doing what God put him on this earth to
Very
do.
true.
And you agreed together as a family because Trevor would have never gone forward
100%.
if you weren't on board with that as well.
I have to say, I like all these. I actually went through little tidbits on this on the internet and also just to like think about it, and I loved it because every one of you guys hit it on the nail. But as you said, when your husband is, mine's starting a new business and you want to be interested in what he's doing, then if you want to know, if you don't want to feel isolated, I'm learning all about woodworking and how to do it and came up with a name, come up with a logo. And I think I pushed him into it because I know he wanted to. So you really have to be that person like, well, stop talking about it, be about it.
Support.
And then be that support. So I love that everyone hit on it. I'm going to just talk on it. It says schedule alone time with your partner. You talk about date night. I loved it. It says build a small connection, a moment together, spending quality time together with the family. And then also then it said, show your kids in a role where they play at it too. So just don't do it as just you guys. Show the kids that role.
Which those are all great, like examples of what I was going to ask next was like, how do we as wives then help them balance these demanding careers with the needs of our family? So like I hate the phone call and I'm working on it, but the word is loathe of I've gotten mandatory overtime. Right? Because it's like, I've already planned for this, and this. And Kingston's already like excited that he's coming home and he knows he's going to go play ball outside. And now it's like, oh, we've got to do this again. Now, do I know in my head that he's just as upset about it? Right. Yes. But in my heart in that moment, I'm like, oh, he's just there. It's there. He's not, doesn't have to
now
bother.
I'm alone again.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, so how do we help them balance the demands and what's needed at home?
Very true.
Yeah, I think obviously the support is there, but the other side of it, I think, is the encouragement of the importance of when you are home. That doesn't mean that you're mad that he can't be there because work is work. Like you cannot change the hours, you can't change what it is. But realizing as a family unit, something Dale and I talk about a lot is that if work is what I'm living for, like I'm missing out. I don't go to work because I love that. I go to work to support my family. So
unless you're dad.
Well, and
well, he's a different breed.
I think it's okay to find joy in it, but if the end goal is your career or your business, you're missing the whole goal of what life is. Life isn't to work. Life is
pay bills.
You're inside. Exactly. The work supports the family. The family doesn't support the work. So that, I think, is the encouragement to give is like, it's not just, like I said, you can't change the hours, but when you're here, this is what the focus is. The other stuff is not as significant.
And then because he can't help that. Correct. It's not like he decided to take overtime. He can't help that. Then maybe in that moment, even as disappointed as you are, you just say, you know what, babe, I'm so sorry and I'm going to miss you, but it's okay. And then when you hang up,
then you can be mad and cry.
Can be a little frustrated about it, and then you cry about it, whatever you got to do, and then you move on. And be like, okay, I'm not going to let this ruin my day, my life, and you're so used to it now. It's been so long. But at the same time, I don't think that it makes it any easier when you've made all these plans and then it is disappointing to your child that this happened. Here's the flip side of a life lesson that your child is learning is that things do change that are out of our control.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's how we handle them
Very true.
Yeah.
I was
is
just about to
what's
say that.
important.
Yeah.
At the
Yes.
level that they're at, trying to
Yeah.
help them
Right.
to understand that, because we don't want our kids to grow up thinking everything is this perfect plastic world,
Yeah, it's definitely not.
you know,
Yeah.
the Barbie world that we'd all love to live in. You know, it's not like that.
Right.
So it's important that they know how to handle those disappointments, you know, just like when he plays ball. You know, if they don't win,
They'll win.
we learn how to win gracefully and we learn how to lose gracefully.
Right. I completely agree. And I think too, like in the conversations you're having with your husband about his career and about what's going on in the family life, like you said, like having those set times to discuss, like, hey, this is a really important event. Like if there's a way that you can arrange your schedule to make sure you see that, because you always, I mean, I wasn't around, you know, but we always talk about how Dad always made it to one of Alyssa's shows.
Always.
You know,
Yeah.
even though,
the boys' games.
Right.
Like when he was driving a bread truck, he would be the bread truck driving up on Saturday to come watch the boys play soccer or whatever they were playing.
then he would go do what he
and then
needed to
he'd
do.
go back and work. And I appreciate that. So.
and I think that just makes it just solidifies that like you can still do what you need to do in your career, but that the family is the important thing.
Take an
you know?
initiative.
But
Like, just-
sometimes they're going to have to miss. That's just
Right.
reality.
Of course,
of
there is
that.
reality.
And knowing that your child knows this, you know, your parent doesn't love you any less.
right, exactly.
But sometimes this just happens, and having, like I think you even said, having that conversation to let them know. And if it is something that they could have controlled, not when you're upset.
Yeah.
Later, when you're not upset, having that honest conversation and saying, this was so important to me and you chose to work instead. And then, you know what? They might say something that you didn't think about too. And that, like, well, I was really concerned that we needed that extra money this week or whatever.
It's checking the priorities of your family.
Yeah. But in being able to say in a healthy conversation and not when you're angry. I'm trying to learn that.
Stay
You know,
calm.
if you haven't watched
People
The
just
Art of
stay calm.
Communication. We did talk about that. I'm really trying to learn what these girls taught me. But you know, when you're not angry, of being able to say, this was really important to me, or as you said, before it even gets to that point, this is very important. You know how I am about taking off for family vacation, and I know I've had this conversation with Brandon a couple times. I am on the calendar, right? Right? Like, you have this scheduled out, right, Brandon? Yes, Mom.
Yes. I know.
Just making sure.
I know. So on the flip side of that question, because I was asking before about like just the negative side of that, how do we, as wives, as women, cultivate that sense of gratitude for what they are doing? Because, like you said before, like they see this as something that they're providing for our family and they're building for our family. And it's a sacrifice, the things that we see as loneliness or like upset for them being away, but it's a sacrifice for them.
Yeah.
So how do we flip that for ourselves to remind ourselves of those things?
I think it's perspective and also gratitude. Like, I know in our household, like I try to always make sure Trevor knows, hey, I am so thankful for what you did today. And then on the flip side, if I'm ever in those moments where I am kind of like angry that he's not here, he's, doing whatever has to be done, I remind myself, okay, thank you. Like, if he didn't have this, we wouldn't live in the house that we have. We wouldn't have the things that we have. So I have to remind myself, like, I get to stay home. Like, thank you for that.
I think for all the people out there who maybe you are the one who works all the time and are missing out on precious moments with the littles. And I just say, it doesn't take a lot. And I'm just listening to all the ladies and all this stuff. Just send your child a little video of yourself, encouraging your child, like, hey, buddy, I can't make it to your baseball game, but I know you're going to do a great job.
idea.
That's really good.
And like something like that. Or, hey, I see you're in the garden today. A quick 10-minute, let me step out of the office. Let me just take a break. Let me go to the bathroom if you want to take it and say,
that's a good idea.
and just say, what are you doing today? A quick FaceTime. Now we have the technology now. We can do all of that.
Yeah.
Back in the day when my dad was doing the bread route and I was doing cheerleading forever and the pager, the beeper, he couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But he got home and mom sent him like pictures, or if they were getting developed at that time, like, or she
A
told her
lot not developed.
it might not be. That's why he didn't say anything. No, just kidding. But like just saying like, how did she do? Or, you know, they encourage, oh, I heard you had it, you know, the practice was okay. Like you're going to get it next time.
Yeah.
I think it's just that little initiative of them just saying, and I don't want them to feel like, oh, I'm working. Am I feeling selfish? Am I, you know, for working? But you're not. You're really providing for your family.
Yeah.
And the kids will appreciate that little bit of like, hey, your daddy got you a video, send it to you. And that's all they want.
sweet.
They just want a little bit of like, he didn't forget about me.
Yeah.
'Cause kids are
Thinking
little.
about when you said that, it made me think of, I don't remember, long time ago, I heard this about greet your husband when he comes home the way the dog would.
Very
so
true.
funny.
I literally, not even joking. That's
we
true.
don't need, you know.
I
Anyhow.
know. I literally jumped on my man.
They are so excited.
Yes,
true.
they look at their
that
butts.
they are
Little
home.
low-key.
What's the joke if you put your husband and your dog or your wife and your dog in the trunk for a couple of days, open it up and see which one's actually happy to see you and be the dog?
Oh my!
Oh, God.
That's a brutal way to do it. But don't do it that way.
Felicia, let's don't do that.
No.
But
I'm going to
it-
teach you
you're right, Mom.
gratitude.
Right. So, but trying to be mindful of when they come home, that you can be excited to
Yes,
see
I
them,
am.
greet them with a
good.
hug,
That's
greet them
true.
with
Yep.
a kiss, and then something else I was going to say. I'm sorry, age.
No, I definitely agree
Well,
with you
along
on
that
that.
line,
ahead,
I
Alyssa.
think when it comes to encouragement, encourage your husband to have a hobby.
Yeah.
I think for me, Dale loves to golf. And for a while, it was a little irritating because it's like, okay, I don't see you Monday through Friday, and now you're going to take Saturday to go and golf. But I think the perspective change for me was, okay, just because he's out of the house doesn't mean he's like trying to do that to me and not see the kids. It's that he's working and he deserves to be able to take a Saturday
Decompress.
and do something that brings him joy and not be like, well, the kids and I bring you joy, don't we? You should be with me on Saturday. But being okay with that, like having those moments. He's okay with me being here with all of y'all and he has the kids. Well, on the flip side, well, all right, well, then I'm going to be okay with you doing your hobby and
it's
being away
important
from.
too that we're not trying to say that we need to do all the work and men don't need to do anything, or we don't have time.
Right.
You have to say, I need this day to go be with the girls, or I need this, a couple hours by myself, or I just want to go get my nails done, or take that time for you too. This isn't a whole, we only do for what our husbands need and we don't do for ourselves, because that is not at all the case.
Yeah.
It is teamwork and learning that. And so making sure that you take care of yourself and you make time for you, but we're talking about how to support them.
How to support them, yeah. And I was like, for me, I laugh because like Brandon, he's a words of affirmation guy. And so like for me to like get that gratitude and that appreciation and stuff, like, so I talk about him in the fire service to everybody. I think everybody I meet ends up knowing that he's a firefighter somehow because it just comes out in conversation.
Yeah,
We are too.
And I'll wear my, my fire wife shirt and I have my fire wife cup and like it's something. And I think even though I think it embarrassed him, out
for sure.
but at the same time, I think he really loves it. I think
he
down, it
does.
shows him because like he brought all y'all shirts.
I have
shirts. So it's like part of me goes,
the grocery
hold on a
store,
second.
like,
But I think
my
it's
brother.
something like by joining in and really talking about and what they do and being proud of what they do and verbalizing that to
Letting
other
them
people.
know.
They hear that and that will basically make that gratitude shine.
sure.
Exactly.
So,
For sure.
Exactly.
so we all have kids, and so it's not just us in the house dealing with husbands who are away or working or building businesses. How do you guys show, remind, help the kids understand what's going on?
I think mom did such a good job of
Oh, well,
this
thanks.
growing up. Well, because I can
I don't know
remember,
what he did,
obviously, mom was the one that was planning the activities and taking us places. And I grew up just mom and I going to Disney for a period of time. And so I think you always did a great job of being like, hey, we get to do this because your dad is working right now. Dad is
Yes.
providing. So
I
when you
remember.
go home, thank him for being at work all day so that we get to go to the zoo together or we get to go do that. You always kind of set that precedence, even though dad wasn't there and we didn't have the phones and the FaceTime and stuff to show him what we were doing. You always kind of brought that to our mind throughout the day that he was the reason why we
Very
got
true.
to be there.
I love that.
Yeah, she definitely did that. Definitely during the pageant times. She's like, well, daddy paid for this dress. He's working, so.
And it's not just them, because I want to make sure that, you know, women contribute
work-
just as much.
Right.
You know, all of you get paychecks. So, you know, you contribute just as much. But it's, you know, we're making sure that they understand, but it's not just on them. I don't want us to come off as sounding like it's, you know, women don't
The
do
title of the
anything.
episode is how to support your husband.
Husband.
Right,
Definitely.
because, you know, and being able to let them know that what they do is important.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, you know, from talking about, you know, finances and stuff, like with Brandon, like we will go to the fire station. And for Kingston, that, you know, he's at that age where, you know, he doesn't really, he's getting it, he's learning it. And so we'll see fire trucks and he's like, is that daddy? And I'm like, no, daddy doesn't even work in the city. So we have to like travel to his fire station. But when he's there, like he'll get in the truck and he gets to touch things and, you know, move things around. And that's where it clicks for him of like, hey, oh, this is what daddy's doing. Like daddy's out there helping people, or, you know, or even when he comes to the office. He was in the office this week and, you know, dad's walks in and Kingston's over there on a laptop and he's like, you know, he's like, Kingston, did you sell anything today? And he's like, oh, I'm about to be, you know, and, you know, but it's like, he learns that like, hey, this is a business and this is what we do. And like, he's involved in that, being able to see those places. I think that's really big of like understanding that they're not just away from the house. They to know the location that they're in and be a part of it, you know?
Yeah.
So
That's
you
good.
know, Kingston drew a letter for Uncle Dale months ago, and Dale has it posted on his desk.
Yes.
So Kingston loves it. He goes in there and he's like, oh, there it is, you know, so he feels a part of those things. So I think that's, you know, one of the big points that, you know, I would have wanted to make was like, just include them in those ways.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think this has been a great episode of supporting each other.
Well, we want you to continue the conversation with us by putting down below anything that you want us to know. Also, you can head over to our website. You can let us know future topics that you want us to talk about. And while you're there, sign up for our free newsletter. So until next week, I just want to encourage you and let you know that you are doing an amazing job. So just keep doing what you're doing. We'll see you next week.
Bye.